It was barely dawn when my day went from routine to absolute chaos. I woke up ready to tackle a long list of chores, feeding the cattle, prepping for the feed delivery, and repairing a broken fence line. My farm runs like clockwork, and every second counts. But as I stepped out onto the porch, something caught my eye, and my stomach dropped. Sitting directly in front of my massive barn doors, completely blocking the entrance, was a shiny, brand-new Bentley, its polished black paint glistening under the morning sun like some kind of smug trophy. It didn't belong there, not on my land, and especially not parked in front of the most crucial access point to my farm. I felt a rush of anger, so intense it almost made me dizzy. That wasn't just any door, it was where the hay truck would be unloading in less than an hour, where my tractor and emergency equipment needed to come and go freely. Without access to that barn, my entire day's work would grind to a halt. And I didn't have to wonder who the culprit was. Karen, my neighbor and the reigning queen of the HOA. She had been a thorn in my side ever since the Homeowners Association expanded their borders to include the edge of my property last year. My farm wasn't even fully under HOA jurisdiction, but Karen had taken it upon herself to civilize me, constantly harassing me with noise complaints, ridiculous fines, and nasty letters demanding that I tear down my perfectly legal barn because it was an eyesore. Now she had escalated. My hands trembled as I marched toward the Bentley, praying for even a hint of reason in this situation. The car was empty, of course. No keys, no note, nothing but entitlement. I whipped out my phone and called Karen. She answered on the third ring, sounding far too chipper for this early in the morning. "Well, good morning, neighbor," she said, her tone dripping with fake sweetness. "Karen," I snapped, barely containing my rage, "your car is blocking my barn door. I have a feed truck arriving in 45 minutes. Move it, now." There was a pause, then a smug little laugh. "Oh, that? I parked there to keep my Bentley safe while the landscapers are working near my driveway. I didn't think you'd mind, seeing as you never have visitors anyway." I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw ached. "This isn't a parking lot, Karen. You are trespassing, and you are interfering with my business." She gasped dramatically. "Business? Please. That ramshackle farm of yours hardly counts as a business. Besides, you have plenty of space. Can't you just go around?" I stared at the massive, heavy barn doors, at the narrow drive, at the hay truck that would be arriving any minute. "No, Karen. I can't just go around. Move. The car." Her voice turned icy. "I'm having breakfast in town with friends. I'll be back in a few hours. You'll just have to wait." Then she hung up on me. I stood there, seething, staring at the gleaming Bentley like it was a living thing taunting me. She wasn't just being inconsiderate, this was deliberate. She was showing me that she thought she owned me, my land, and my livelihood. Well, she was about to learn a very painful lesson. I stormed back to my equipment shed and fired up my tractor. The engine roared to life, the deep rumble echoing across my property like a declaration of war. As I drove toward the barn, a few neighbors peeked out of their windows, drawn by the sound. They knew Karen and they knew me. Some looked worried, others downright eager, like they knew something dramatic was about to go down. When I reached the Bentley, I didn't hesitate. First, I lowered the massive metal bucket of the tractor just a few inches above the hood. I gave one last glance around, making sure there were witnesses, because when Karen inevitably tried to twist the story, I wanted proof. Then I slammed the bucket down. The crunch was deafening. The hood crumpled like tinfoil under the weight, the windshield shattering instantly. Gasps erupted from the small crowd of onlookers, but I didn't stop there. I lifted the bucket, angled it just right, and scooped up the entire front half of the Bentley. Its tires dangled helplessly as I revved the engine and drove forward, dragging the car like a piece of scrap metal. With each movement, I felt a surge of satisfaction. This wasn't just about a blocked door anymore. This was about every insult, every harassment, every sleepless night Karen had caused me. By the time the feed truck arrived, the Bentley was sitting in a mangled heap off to the side, completely out of the way. The driver stepped down from his cab, took one look at the destroyed luxury car, and let out a low whistle. "Damn," he said with a grin. "Guess someone parked in the wrong spot." "You could say that," I replied, my voice calm now that the worst of my anger had burned off. We unloaded the hay without a hitch, and I was finally starting to feel like I could breathe again. That is, until I heard the sound of screeching tires on pavement. Karen had arrived. She came barreling down the driveway, her designer heels sinking into the dirt as she stormed toward the wreckage of her car. When she saw what was left of it, her face turned a shade of red I didn't think was humanly possible. "You maniac!" she screamed, pointing at me like an enraged schoolteacher. "You destroyed my Bentley." I crossed my arms, standing tall. "No, Karen. You destroyed your Bentley when you parked it on private property, blocking essential farm operations. I just moved it out of the way." She shrieked so loudly some birds took off from the nearby trees. "I'm calling the HOA. I'm calling the police. You're finished." "Go right ahead," I said, my voice steady. "But before you do, you might want to brush up on state trespassing laws and agricultural protection ordinances. Spoiler alert, the law is on my side." As if on cue, several neighbors stepped forward, phones in hand. "We saw everything," one man said firmly. "She blocked his barn on purpose. We've got video proof." Another neighbor chimed in. "This has gone on long enough, Karen. You've been harassing him for months." Karen's confidence wavered as she realized she was badly outnumbered. She sputtered and raged, but when the police finally arrived, it was clear where their sympathies lay. After reviewing the footage and listening to witness statements, they issued Karen a hefty fine for trespassing and interference with agricultural business operations. Her precious Bentley? Considered abandoned property and impounded for evidence. As the tow truck hauled away the crumpled remains, Karen screamed threats about lawsuits and revenge. But the officers just shook their heads and warned her to stay off my land or face arrest next time. The HOA, embarrassed by the whole debacle, quickly distanced themselves from her and issued a statement saying her actions were unauthorized and inappropriate. In other words, she was on her own. In the end, Karen didn't just lose her Bentley. She lost her power over me. From that day forward, no one, not Karen, not the HOA, not anyone dared to block my barn again. And I made sure to install security cameras and heavy-duty fencing just to be safe. Sometimes standing up for yourself isn't about words or paperwork. Sometimes it's about proving once and for all that your land and your livelihood are worth defending. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more epic takedowns of bullies and HOA tyrants, hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next.